Well, let's get this in. Let's lead this into this article from Fortune magazine, which you can get on the Kindle.
Out of curiosity, do you have your Kindle yet?
No, it's my. It was a birthday gift. It's a birthday gift for my parents, and we're mainly doing it because of a lot of the magazine subscriptions that I have, and they're not expiring until July. So
okay.
The deal is that I'll just get it in July when my hard copies.
No, that makes sense. I just didn't know. That is one. Again, that's the other thing. It's all these magazine subscriptions. I mean, aside from the daily, there's I don't see all of these coming to iOS because they're being told they have to charge the same price. Anyways, going to the article you're talking about.
Yeah. So. It's interesting, and I'll premise this that a lot of us that have been with Apple, you don't even have to be an employee. I've had a friend work at Apple, but Jobs wasn't there when he worked there. I believe it was just coming on. It was 90. I can't remember. It was a CyberDog project. So
oh God, CyberDog.
Yeah, my friend worked on it back then. Look, I mean that was back when I considered Apple really trying out new things. They had that what was it, iWorld and all that other stuff. It was way ahead of what we think that it's cuckoo for what it was then, but essentially that's where a lot of us are doing in the cloud anyway today.
They had the idea right. They just had the UI wrong.
Yeah, you could say that. It was kind of. Yeah, they tried to make it look like a city and stuff. I remember.
Yeah, and it sounds like a good idea until you actually do it. It's.
I used it. I mean, it was for what it was, but a lot of people look at Steve Jobs as a dictator, this and that, and now one company I had worked for contractually though was Microsoft, and they had a building over by the Intercontinental Airport. And it was a fun environment, but everything is deadline driven. It's kind of like what even in programming I do now. The means and ways of getting to the deadline are irrelevant. But if the product is not ready or your specific part is not ready by the deadline, then there's hell to pay, right? But what I don't like, this is the perfectionist of Steve Jobs. Well, look, Gates was just as hard from buddies that I've had at Microsoft, and I would say but Gates I don't think is as, I don't know what a correct adjective to use this moment would be. He's not as into. He's not into wrapping it up as this is the entity Microsoft and like some biological or like it's its own living entity.
I know what you're talking about. Honestly, I agree with you.
Technically driven. He's like both guys are perfectionists with different ideologies.
No, that's the thing.
Stop at nothing to get it right.
Bill Gates and Steve Jobs have the same personality. They just are. Their goals are different, but they have the same.
Well, not only that, I think it's how they handle it too. For instance, like Jobs in this one article told his own crew of this Mobile Me thing that you should hate each other for the way it makes Apple look. You should hate each other. I mean, I just think I'm saying, are we on Sesame Street? I mean, I feel like I'm on Mr. Rogers' television show. I mean, that's like, I was actually in a serious debate about this Adobe letter when Steve Jobs wrote his Adobe letter, and then the guy was saying, well, he said, well, I would expect that Jobs has changed his ways from the old days. I don't think so.
No.
This is very much the same Steve Jobs that is very much the same personality. In the same way he is with his people. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he can't get away with pushing them around as some of the Pirates of Silicon Valley depicted. But I'm going to tell you, no. I think he takes things very personal. Making a statement of you should hate each other.
That is the thing about Jobs. He does. He literally takes it personally. Even if it's just purely business, if it's just purely an honest critique, it's no, it's not an honest critique. It's you have assaulted him personally.
If you assault Apple, you assault him. That's it. See, like Gates, I think is like a technology-driven goal. In other words, Microsoft is not this cell membrane that's around him. He's seeking, like, let's use ActiveX. This can get us this can get us dynamic connectivity and data binding on the internet. Boom, that's great. And if it feels like problems, it's not like, well, look what you're doing to Microsoft. He doesn't think of it that way. It's like let down because the technology that was there was an awesome feat to provide for consumer purchases. This is an Apple product. This is how an Apple product should be. This is attached to me because this is the way I like my company to be, and I'm a perfectionist in the definition and identity of what Apple is. And so therefore, I see that that's, in my opinion, the way I see it, by the words that I'm reading, if we're to assume this is true, then that by what I know is how I would see the way the two are very different. And that, again, if I'm repeating myself, sorry, it's just Gates is, I think, he's got a technological result in mind, and Apple and Steve Jobs has a product for Apple. How is this for Apple result in mind in the end?
Yeah, and that to me is the one thing that holds Apple back most. It really is, because it's.
Well, see, people would say, "What are you talking about? They're winning right now." And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, they're very successful right now." I mean, but a large part of their history, they were exactly the same place. Let's all take a time machine and go back to the early 1980s.
Okay. Do you want to be Sherman or Peabody? We're gonna set the way back, you know.
It's like, hey, we can go in that heyday, or how about the heyday, or what was dubbed the golden age of Macintosh, 1989 to 1991, 56% growth and all that other stuff during that time frame.
Doing the exact same things they're doing right now.
It's like there's going to be a heyday, and then you go down. It's a business cycle, isn't it? Of course, this is a temporary thing. It's great for Apple. I always wanted Apple to succeed, but the thing of it is that the majority of my time as an Apple user was in the absence of Jobs. Jobs was not there. He had left in 1985. I was still my first Apple computers were the Apple II, and I'd get into the Macs and the LCs and all this other stuff. But the majority of my time with Apple was without Steve Jobs. And when Steve Jobs came back, I was so excited. Everybody was like, "Wow, this is great!" In the mid '90s, and I didn't mind how things were going. They had some bad years, even under Jobs. There was still negative growth. Then the iPod came out. I was like, "Wow, this is cool." Apple's getting into other kinds of things. But see, the iPod to me was like, I was never a Walkman kind of person, so I could care. It didn't really suit me. And then they came up with the Blueberry and Tangerine. And, then I was like, you've got to be kidding. With this, I wasn't going to get caught dead with some Blueberry iMac on my desk. Now that's kind of dumb because it goes against my grain in that function over form for me. So I will say
function over form, and you're an Apple user?
Yes. Hey, well, because Apple's hardware always worked. Come on, during the '90s, I mean, Windows. Oh gosh, do we need to really hash that out? I mean, I didn't look. I operated on a Blueberry iMac. I mean, I had a Blueberry iMac, but I did not appreciate the design. But dude, it did a hell of a lot.
What did you think of the clamshells?
No, I never got one of the PowerBooks, but I got the titanium PowerBook when it came out. That was really slick.
Okay.
So I enjoyed that, but I don't know. Of late, it's gotten. Oh, when OS X came out, boy, was I excited! Man, I was all over that when I was because I had followed all of the OS progression.
Also known as Next OS version 2.
And I was super excited, and got heavy. I didn't care. I just got into OS X and just followed it through and through, and it was great. And then then switched to Intel. I was disappointed, very disappointed, but I understood the move, no doubt. It made sense. I had just wished that they would have supported both in parallel, and up an enterprise solution using power trips and making IBM, and for the consumer end, fine. In the mobile notebooks, if you didn't want to use a cell processor at the time, they could have stuck with Intel and IBM. But of course, people would argue against that. And then now you're in this where I find that during that time there was a lot of things up. We had lots of options. There were things even in the early 2000s. I felt like we could do a lot more, and it wasn't as restrictive. And now we're all the way down to one API, Objective-C, and tons of policies and restrictions are coming into place. And now it's just it feels like a massive consolidation.
Well, no, but see, that's the thing. That's classic Apple.
But see, you gotta. I have been with Apple. Look, Apple protectionism originally was since our hardware is unique to the other, like the IBM PC market, we're not going to license it out. This is our stuff. We spent a lot of time designing this and making it work, and we'll be damned if we're going to go and license all this hardware out to other people. In the end, in hindsight, most of their former executives said they should have done it, but I'm not going to bring that argument up. But that's how they on software back in the mid '90s, man, they were trying to dole out lots of new ideas. And check this out, and there were lots of new product software starts that would just flop it, and they had lots of hardware starts and they would flop. And one could say, well, that's why you don't do that kind of thing. Look at what Jobs are doing right now is correct and this and that. I would argue that that's not necessarily the case. Now there's a timing for everything. And right now, I think the hardware and software and batteries are at a place that it makes it now possible for rebranding older technologies that were designed at times that they were too ahead of their time to be accepted by the masses. Today the demographics and the consumer it's more palatable to accept a tablet and a digital MP3 player. They're more comfortable with these things versus what they would be in the mid-90s is my argument. And so Apple, of course, is successful, I think, because in part that the large parts of consumers are ready, and in part they make great products. I mean, that's obviously I am an Apple fan, but I felt like it's just from my end as a developer and other things that I used to know, it just doesn't seem things seem to be evaporating.
Well, no, it's like I'm gonna go like way back, like about 3 years before your Wayback Machine, and honestly, I think this was always the plan. I think Apple didn't really ever want people to have these choices. This is how I've always seen them. I think they accepted the practicality of crap. Microsoft's gotten off the ground. We have to compete with choice. So we have to inch our way to draconian control rather than just start there, because if we start there, we're dead. And I think they accepted that. I don't think they wanted that, but I think they accepted it. And they stumbled and they saw it, and then they got Jobs back, and they definitely got the marketing thing going right. But I honestly think the plan always was, we want all computers to basically be what iOS is. I honestly do think the iPad, the all roads go through Apple. Apple decides what you can and can't do, is what they always wanted. If you look back at how Apple got started as a company, their goal was to take out IBM, but their goal, it was very clear based on the business model they were adopting way back then. They wanted to take out IBM by outdoing them at their own game. And when that...
Well, it wasn't their own game. See, I mean, they had...
Well, no, it was the game of the computer industry in general. It's just provided...
They're bringing Jobs had visioned that this was the new form of computing versus IBM, and IBM had to play catch-up.
Well, no. I'm not talking about, like... I agree that switching to GUI computing, which is what Apple was trying to do, and a couple of other people were too. I mean, Apple wasn't first. A lot of people say they were. They were the first to, like you say, they let enough cycles of Moore's Law go down, and they're like, okay, now this can be, it's not cheap, but it can be afforded. And it's like, and they waited for that mark, and that was smart on their side. But they were still doing the IBM business model of, this is our hardware, this is our software that goes with it, this is our package. And no, everybody was doing that.
Except Microsoft.
No, that was the thing. What screwed Apple's desire up was this little upstart came along and go, I got a better business model.
No, you're forgetting one part. The upstart pleaded and begged Apple and said, "We love the Macintosh."
Well, no. See, that was the thing. There's if you look at the history of that, all that pleading and stuff going on there, you look at how the world could have been. It was very clear. Apple had no interest in this business model. They have to play with it because it's the business model of today's world. But from day one, Apple did not want this business model. Apple liked the little or no competition draconian control business model.
And so did every other RISC manufacturer, IBM and Sun, the SGI and MIPS processors.
Yeah,
but look what ARM's doing. ARM, which is now dominating, and I truly hope that ARM truly makes 13% of the PC market by, or what they say, 12 or 13, something by 2015. That'd be awesome, because they're doing it right. They don't make the chips. They say, here's our design, go with it. It's that software model to distribute it from one to many out to hardware.
No, and like you say, ARM is exactly what we're talking about here, except with hardware. It's just like, no. We don't really want to deal with the logistics of and the supply and so on of doing everything ourselves. We want to let the free market kind of take care of what it's good at, and we just want to do the part we're good at. And time and time again, it has shown that is the business model that ultimately leads to the most innovation, competition, and ultimately, at the end, it's a win for the consumer and people who play the game without trying to control all the pieces do wind up ultimately winning. But Apple has never liked this game. I'm not saying they don't get it. I'm just saying they don't like it, because it means they have to work a little harder, and they don't get to dictate. They have to react. And that's a very different thing. It's like, as a company that's never really been in Apple's comfort zone, they're fine with innovation on their terms, as they want to. Not so much in reaction to the market as a whole. Whenever Apple's having to react to the market, it's almost like they're angry that they're actually having to react to something. Like, we didn't create this. Why are we even having to mess with it? It's something I think Apple as a company needs to lose. Because the reality is, we have 30 plus, we're going on 30 plus years. In a few years now, it will be 30 years of proving, I'm sorry, but the model that ultimately does best is the one you hate. The free market.
Well, people are going to argue and say, see, here's the thing. There's these temporary periods of time where someone else can have market share while you still make money and you do fine. The problem is that once too much market share is lost, then that's when you're finally at the long-term point, and then that if your market share is so skewed in the other direction that it will start affecting your bottom line, because then more people, the demographics are of this default understanding of the way this other product is versus yours, and then the expectations change, and it takes a while to get there, but it happens.
Well, no, let's say
that's why market share does matter. It really.
Well, no, and honestly, I think we're there again. I think the other shoe just hasn't dropped yet. You know, this was the time for Apple to, say, okay, we've
Well, what should Apple do? Do you think they should license out iOS? I don't.
No. I think they should just accept that they're not in charge of the industry. Here's the thing: it's fine if you want to play the game Apple wants to play, but you can only play that game for like 1 to 3 years, and after that period has passed, you need to flip a switch and go, okay, fine.
See,
We're not playing that game anymore. We're not going to act like we can have draconian control. We're not going to. But Apple never does that. Apple always does. The last keynote out of Apple, and we're getting another one next month, and we'll see. But the last keynote out of Apple was very telling. Steve Jobs gets up there on stage, and there was anger in his voice. It's not like he was a raving lunatic, but it was clear he was annoyed. You think you're competing with us? You were never competing with us, and all of that stuff.
Oh, he is Apple. See, he takes things personally. That's
No. But it's like
he did. He put the Android logo up, and now this time Android's numbers I believe they have now more activations and all this other stuff, which as Google I/O I think just revealed. So now I think Apple can't put that up in there.
See that was the thing. Instead of getting up there and going, you know what, we're still in charge. All of you people who are talking about us not being in charge of everything, shut up, because we're in charge, because we say we're in charge, because we're in charge. Apple always
they're coming off saying they're in charge.
Oh, no. Apple always reacts that way, rather they believe it. It's like they go through the 5 stages of denial way too slowly. They need to just accept, okay, we raped and plundered and maximized revenue for the last years. But now we can't do that. Now we need to play to win. And to play to win means we need to not compromise, but not try and control every little facet. We need to actually...
I'm sure, yeah. I'm sure that, it's like, I listen to a very Apple enthusiast, if you want to call him fanboy, whatever, that what I can't stand is they'll say, oh, well, people just buy Android phones because they don't really know what they're looking for. They just go to a store and they come out with an Android phone, not really knowing what it is. That's utter rubbish. I know tons and tons of people.
Well, and you know what's
lawyers to doctors to non-geeks, friends of the family that go, I want an Android phone.
You know what's hysterical about that? I can just...
No, wait, hold on. I listen to arguments from people saying, oh, my Droid is better. Well, screw you. HTC kicks ass with Droid. Look at what my Droid, my Android phone can do versus your Droid, from Motorola. I mean, I've literally read that people love Apple, a lot of Apple fans, because they maybe just don't like Android. I am not a fan of Android UI. I'm just not yet. I think it does need, but I also cannot stand iOS's user interface. I think I prefer navigating on Android more than iOS, but there are things about Android that I cannot stand. Concurrency and all these other things I think are like this chaotic mesh that still needs tweaking. But they can't imagine why would a user go and buy Android when you've got this wonderful finesse and things like that. And sometimes I'll just corner an Apple user and they say, what finesse are you talking about on the iPhone? I'll give you the Retina display, that it's got some great resolution, but other manufacturers can eventually come up with that. What is it that you like? I find it clunky. The notifications stink. It's multitasking.
That was my reaction.
What is so much finesse about it?
That was the thing. That was my reaction from day one with
WebOS has finesse.
With iOS before it was even iOS. Day one, iPhone is like everybody's raving. Oh my God, the iPhone! It's just great! It's great! It's like, okay, fine. I went into the store. I went and played with one. And honestly, I felt like I was in a boxing match with the device. I was just like, intuitive, wonderful, This was like back version 1, and then I tried again with version 2, and I was like, it's not getting better. I mean, it's a little better, but I'm still in a boxing match with this thing. It's like, and I picked up Android. I wasn't in a boxing match. Things were where I thought they should be. They worked how I thought they should work. There's not. If you're somebody who iOS is that to you, okay, but that's why we have competition.
Yeah,
but
it's just that. But their mindset is that I can't understand how somebody would just. How could someone actually go there and actually go to a Verizon store or whatever and say, I want an Android phone? That's like unheard of in their minds. But oh yes, they can identify with Apple. So now I'll grant you that the iPhone 4, the glass, everything's very nice, but the damn thing still drops calls for my wife and everything. My 3G and 3GS drop calls like a bad habit. Quite frankly, it's very good build quality that should not be called a phone to me. It just, and people, and what's funny is that people will argue with me, oh, well, I don't get dropped phone calls, but then I listen to prominent Macintosh or prominent Apple bloggers that they themselves go, oh yeah, I've had about 20 drop calls on my iPhone, and they just accept it, and move on, and somehow it still has finesse after 20 drop calls. And what I love is that they don't. Then they wonder why. How did Windows keep succeeding with all the misgivings it had? Well, obviously they themselves are sticking with the iPhone for some odd reason. It's providing some sort of service that's doing well to them that they prefer and has a greater need over having phone calls by some sort. Well, Windows provided the same thing. It provided some sort of service that users needed that overshadowed the viral problems and all this other crap. And I wish they would just step into those shoes and understand it, that when you are speaking like that and you have misgivings of it...
Hey. Pots never see the kettle.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like... And I'll admit, hey, I went on Twitter. I was pissed off. My Palm Pre, my Palm Pre Plus locked up for the freaking first time I've owned it. I had to take the damn battery out. I was pissed off, really pissed off. And I'm a fair man. I want to tell you, when crap breaks, it breaks. And so I was pissed off. I went on Twitter. I was like, well, Palm Pre Plus just freaking bricked on me. I had to take the damn battery out and stuff. So I'll call it like it is. I've owned Android, iOS.
Well, no,
Apple.
You're getting on the other thing that drives me nuts about the Apple community. It's the holier than thou people you're talking about that are like, oh no, Apple products only shit sunshine. I'm like, no. I mean, I've seen some Lulu errors out of Apple products. I'm just like, what the F shit?
Well, let's put it this way. An Apple product is like, it used to, remember what was it, the late 80s when BMW was recovering and all that stuff, and there were people saying, well, I have remember the yuppies and all that, they had the BMWs, and then in the business cars and things like that. What was that movie that personified that very well? I think it was American Psycho or something like that, with that guy from Batman. I can't remember.
What, Michael Keaton?
No, the new Batman, the new one. Oh Lord, he was as a little child. He was in the movie Empire of the Sun, and I can't remember.
Anyways.
But that movie American Psycho, he was in there. And they would talk about the grain and texture of business cards and the suits and things like that. And there was no productivity founding behind any of it, but it was, I own something nice, and this makes me feel better about owning it in many regards. And I think that is very much the case with any product, not just an Apple product.
Maybe that's one of the reasons I just don't get the whole Apple thing, because honestly, I'm a big, what's wrong with the Volkswagen? I don't aspire to the BMW or the Mercedes or the Rolls Royce. I'm like, what's the point? I honestly just don't get it. The Volkswagen's everything I need. It's economical. It's and it's got all the stuff. I'm just, it's like I don't get the point to get the Audi or the BMW or the Mitsubishi.
Yeah. I mean, we all like to have. We all buy products that help express ourselves in one way or another, and then we all have varying degrees of how important that is to us. I mean, but I get the sense. It's like when I used to, I always say the story. It's like when I used to stand in lines or have my little swap meets at these old beaten up offices with Apple users, and we'd sit and talk, or you go to Sears and buy an Apple product. Now you stand in line and nobody knows anything about technology, or they just go, "Oh yeah, it just works." And what's the next song I'm buying? Kind of thing. And maybe that is the right thing to do. Maybe computer users are not supposed to be that geeky. Maybe we're not supposed to know that amount of information. People could argue that. Oh well, it's supposed to be so simple that you can do other things in your life. I've always had the philosophy, if there's anything that I get into and I use heavily, even like a vehicle, I try to know as much as I can about it. I mean, I actually do read all the manuals, like from my Nissan Pathfinder. I try to do my own things, but I just don't know all the tools. I try to find out how it works.
No, you're getting into an aspect of humanity in general. And the reality is, there are people, and I'm with you, I happen to be one of them. It's like, even if I'm not going to go build the power plant, I want to have an understanding of how these little things called electrons are moving through the power line and going back, and understand Ohm's law, and so I understand the concepts that are driving all of this. But the reality is, most of humanity just wants to push the magic button and go, ooh, shiny, it lit up. They don't give a shit that, that is hundreds of years of, and that's a fundamental force of the universe, actually. That's actually the power of this part of an atom that's driving things, and there's universal laws that govern it, that actually even govern parts of our body. Most people not only aren't curious to know, but don't want to know. And I've never understood that, but I have come to accept that is humanity.
Of course. It is, of course, sure.
I don't understand.
I make that point. It's because I've lived where Apple demographics used to be and where they are today. Why I make that point. But it's so funny, this article starts off with a paragraph like this. It says, so exalted is Steve Jobs that often he is compared metaphorically at least to Jesus Christ.
At least he hasn't been stupid enough to say he's bigger than Jesus.
But this is just what he says. Exhibit A, this Alan Deutschman's revealing 11-year-old book, The Second Coming of Steve Jobs. I find that funny. True to form, the shepherd to his apple flock often teaches in parables. One such lesson could be called the differences between the janitor and the vice president. and it's a sermon Jobs delivers every time an executive reaches the VP level. Jobs imagines his garbage regularly not being emptied in his office. And when he asks the janitor why, he gets an excuse. The locks have been changed, and the janitor doesn't have a key. This is an acceptable excuse coming from someone who empties trash bins for a living. It says the janitor gets to explain why something went wrong. Senior people do not. When you're the janitor, Jobs has repeatedly told incoming VPs, reasons matter. He continues, somewhere between the janitor and the CEO, reasons stop mattering. I can kind of understand some. I can kind of understand.
I get.
It's a weight of responsibility, but the segue here of I think that I guess I could go back and say I don't appreciate the tone of saying so exalted Steve Jobs that often he is compared to Jesus Christ, because the paragraph then goes into something that I would agree with. Responsibility increases with the amount that you're taking on within.
Oh yeah, you would hate you would hate to be an underling with me, because I actually expect my lower echelon underlings to think. Like, if the janitor came to me and said, "Well, the locks were changed," my response would be, "And you didn't think you should go get the new key? You didn't think that was necessary?" You know, that would be my honest on. What you didn't want to do your job today? If you didn't have the key you needed, why didn't you go get it? It's like...
Well, so this is telling me a little bit that this article has a slant to it. Right? This top part I thought was going to lead to something else, but now I don't quite like the context, because I agree with that. I mean, reason there's you know, you have an expectation. You have a, especially if you're you know, Forstall or Schiller, Cook or any of them, you've got a tremendous amount of responsibility where, you know, these little petty things, you know, that's not going to get you to tomorrow. See, I just got the magazine tonight, so I'm going to read it, but I found it very interesting. They show like this picture. It's a chart. All these circles around here are of VPs, and then all these orange are like the executives like Tim Cook and Forstall and Schiller.
And the god in the middle is Steve Jobs.
It's kind of cool though. Yeah. You know, I had said on Twitter a long time ago, because of my friend did this, I was like, I'd probably never end up working at Apple, just like personality, but I'm a person that is also, I consider myself a perfectionist, more than that, and that's why, and I have a little bit of Jobs personality in me. That's predominantly why I've been on YouTube and all this since 2007, but yet my own website is not ready, because I get mad at myself, and the standards I set for myself are far higher than anything that if it's going to have the Mr. Bit name to it, it's going to be something. So I share that same rationale, but I think at the level of the company,
that is like a universal geek thing, with few exceptions. You know, have you ever met a techie person who, like, whether they do software, websites, whatever, it's like they'll do it all day long for other people, but when they sit down and do it for themselves, they're like, "No, not good enough."
Yeah.
Like, "No, not good enough."
I know. But see, if you're the size of Apple, you know, I don't know, I probably would end up being more of a Gates and saying, I get more excited about, ooh, there's this new technology, and be a rhinoceros and charge it, and nothing getting in my way to achieve it, versus how does this affect the company perception?
Well, no, it's like, I honestly, see, this is another reason me and Apple don't get along so well. You know, it comes down with, I guess, how you define wealth. There's some people who define wealth as, you know, like keeping up appearances and having revenue and stuff. My definition of true wealth is it's not about money. You know, it's not if you have $1,000, $1 million, $1 trillion. That's irrelevant to true wealth. Wealth is the ability to do whatever and not give a shit what anybody else thinks. You know, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. You're doing this because you want to, for you. That has no place in business. But it's like, this is my side project. If something comes of it, okay. That's my definition of wealth. And there are very few people who are comfortable enough in their own skin, then alone have the resources to do that. But that's my true definition of wealth. You know, not the house on the hill, not the sun. It's like, you know what? If I want to go learn how, if I want to go learn how to build a car, I'm gonna go build a car. You know, if I want to go, you know, whatever it is for you. You know, it could be something as simple. You know, I'd like to learn how to plant a crop, so I'm gonna go buy a few acres and farm for a while because I want to. You know, it's like whatever. You know, and for different people, that's a different thing. And whatever that thing is, that's the thing. But if you start thinking about what other people think of your particular brand of insanity, because anybody who actually goes off and does that is totally mad. but they have to be certifiably insane because they're doing something without purpose because they want to, and then something may or may not come out of it. But that's insanity. But the moment you start giving a shit what other people think about that, you've lost that wealth. It's like, then you're not doing your thing.
You've given power.
You're doing it to please somebody else, at which point then you're now not in charge of shit even if you think you are. It's like that you've given, like you say, that much power away.
Exactly. Absolutely. Well, on that note, man, let's wrap it up because it is an hour. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say. You know what? That's actually probably a good place to stop it, unless there's anything else here you want to go into. I mean, that keyboard's an entirely unconformed rumor, so I'm not sure that's it. We'll find out at some future point on that. So you wanted to stop it there?
Yes, sir.
Okay then. This has been Philosophizing with the iBit.